When we come here, it's like coming home to a place you've never been. That's what African Americans feel when we come here.
I don't see myself the same as other people simply because we share a somewhat similar skin color or even have ancestors who come from the same place.
I'll give you a good example. Mobile, Alabama. You've got Africa Town, founded by an African, Kojo Lewis, or Oluwale Kosola, who is a Yoruba man who was captured in the Dahomey Republic and brought to the Americas in 1860. That is so recent. The brother only passed on in 1935. So that should tell you a story that the connection to Africa is real, it's recent.
Get with people who have the same values, same culture, and same mindset. And that's regardless of the skin color. And so one of the cultural values that we have as Earpois, people of the free world, is education. We value education. And so we push ourselves and we push our children to be knowledgeable and to be informed citizens wherever they find themselves throughout the entire world.
You have not been given your freedom. You have not been respected as a human being, even by the most educated of your lot in America, simply because you look like me. Remember, emancipation came in what? 1863. It took another 100 years by the trigger of Rosa Parks on that bus.
I want to share this video with you because it shows a woman who bought into the idea of an African utopia, and she moved to Ghana just to find out that it was not what she expected. And so I want to share this video because it shows a very important lesson about expectations and reality, and also why I don't see myself the same as other people simply because we share a somewhat similar skin color or even have ancestors who come from the same place.
If this is home, why do we have to pay to be a resident? If this is home, why isn't our citizenship automatically given to us?
That's because many of them don't see you as their people. They try to get people to move to Ghana, not back to Ghana. That's because the Black American folks, they're not from there, right? They're from America. They're born and raised in America. But many of their ancestors, hundreds of years ago, they may have been from there, but people have to understand that there's a big difference between themselves as a person who's living in the flesh today and their ancestors who were people who were living hundreds of years ago. Because anyone who traces their ancestral lineage back far enough, they're going to end up finding ancestors that come from the continent of Africa, right? That's everybody out there, at least according to what science shows us today. But at some point they moved on, right? After they left the continent, they developed different cultures, different languages, different customs, right? Different ways of thinking, right? And they became something else. And that something else would have been largely unrelatable to the same people who remained on the continent of Africa, right? And that's just the story of humanity as a whole. And it's no different for the people who call themselves Black Americans. They became something completely different over time. And that's why, as she said in the video, that they call the Black Americans foreigners, right? A foreigner is just someone who's an alien or is someone who's not from that area. And so the Ghanaians, they're in their right mind when they call the Black Americans foreigners.
About a week ago, I did a story talking about Africa don't want us back, essentially referring to Black Americans and Black diaspora feeling the pain of coming back to the continent, getting charged visa fees, and just generally feeling unwanted and unwelcome on the continent. And I could actually understand the sentiments, and I spoke about that. And the gentlemen and ladies that talked about it very specifically spoke about the continent not being very welcoming, that they felt like they were foreigners on the continent. That is their lived experience. And a lot of brothers on the continent, continental Africans, brothers and sisters, not a lot, just a number of them, seem to have an issue with the title. You know, maybe they're going to have another issue with this title as well. I don't know. Or should they cherry pick which one they want? But the thing is, we've got to be brutally honest with some of these challenges that, our brothers and sisters are experiencing on the continent. They are realities, and we cannot run away from them. What is the best way that we can synergize, work together? That should be the focus, so that if somebody is raising any issues, if I'm raising anything, I'm reacting to what they have said and giving a take as an African brother born and raised on the continent, aware of some of the challenges that they're going through, being present in the moment to speak to those things, and speak to those things candidly. Because Africa is home. And though now the other brother here, Brooklyn, St. Michael, he's also referring to himself as a foreigner. And in fact, he's done a reaction to one of the videos that I reacted to. The sister there. And he says, that blacks from the diaspora indeed are foreigners on the continent of Africa. I think to the extent that there's new life for you guys out there. And I'm saying new life, in quotes. And the new culture that you have experienced, that you've grown up in, obviously it's different from what we have on the continent. But however much you look at it, my brother here says that a somewhat similar skin. So basically he's discounting the fact that there can be any relationship in terms of skin color. But you cannot deny color. You can't deny this. It is what it is, man. And even for those who are lighter or look paler or they're pink, they are who they are. You cannot deny it. There's a lot of stories about science and the Darwin theories and migration and all these things, and how humans and life must have started on the continent of Africa. And therefore, people moved on to the other places. And over time, genetically, there have been modifications and people have become something new. That is what Michael Brooklyn is also talking about. People have become something new. So by saying that people have become something new, it also essentially just means that indeed human beings can move to new locations and become something new, adapt, culturalize, So I'm at the roundabout. This is a big roundabout within this section of town. This is Langata Road in Nairobi. So that direction is town, takes you to the CBD. And on this side, this takes you all the way towards Langata and towards Karen. Karen is one of those upmarket neighborhoods that was named after a Scandinavian lady who was called Karen Blixen, I believe, Karen. And one of the first few who actually inhabited that area way, way back. So because of that, and her house was taken up by National Museums of Kenya, because of that, the area is now called Karen. Okay? So that's Karen for you. And I need to cross here now. Yep. That's Nairobi for you. It's one of my favorite spots. So the point is that people change, people move, people adapt to new life. True, that's true. People change, people adapt to new life. So I would want to believe that the chance to travel back to Africa also makes it possible for those who are engaging in the continent to adapt a new life. You are different, granted. Yeah. But it doesn't mean that because of the 400 years, 500 years plus that you have been gone, that we cannot see you as brothers and sisters. I think that's far from the truth. So this is, I'm at Timor actually. Yeah, I'm at Timor, where we cannot see you as brothers and sisters. So, are you foreigners on the continent? You may feel like you're a foreigner because you'll be charged visa fees. They're telling you you need to pay up for citizenship and all these things. In my last video, I actually demonstrated that really, I believe that brothers and sisters from out there should actually stake a claim on the continent of Africa. Because you came from here. A vast majority came from here. So to suggest that you have changed over time and therefore you have no connection, I think it's to stretch the truth a bit too far. I'll give you a good example. Mobile, Alabama. You've got Africa Town. Africa Town was founded by an African. Remember, an African. Kojo Lewis, or Kosola, or Luwale Kosola, who is a Yoruba man who was captured in the Dahomey Republic by Dahomey warriors. And by the way, if you didn't know, a vast majority of those Dahomey warriors were actually women. They were fierce, they were brutal men. That was the culture back then. So he was captured and brought to the Americas in 1860. That is so recent. The brother only passed on in 1935. So that should tell you a story that the connection to Africa is real, it's recent. And the greater proof is also that the ship upon which they were brought onto the continent of America, the Clotilda, built by Timothy Mayer, who was a shipbuilder, a rich fellow at the time, and I believe died rich and was a slave owner, because from his own bet, after slavery ended, 50, 60 years later, he managed to convince another of his European brother to get a ship onto the west coast of Africa and get captives. They got at least 110 Africans to travel. Well, I can't call it traveling, really. That's not traveling. They captured at least 110 Africans and took them to the western coast, and they arrived in Mobile, Alabama in 1860. So, I don't know Brooklyn. I don't know how that kind of history can be denied. It is stuck, it exists, and if there was any doubt, the proof is there. There was a man living in flesh, there was a boat, and it's been pulled out of the Mobile River, it's been pulled out of the riverbed, it's been shown to the public. And the Clotilda survivor, the families are many. We have seen them. We have seen them. So these are truths we cannot deny. We cannot deny the existence of slavery. We cannot deny the existence of African communities, black communities that traveled to the US, were captured and taken to the US in very recent human time. So you cannot deny that, So I think it is fine that you can speak your truth, speak your own experience. But for those who wish to travel to Africa, by all means, those who wish to connect to Africa, let them connect with Africa, man. Let them connect with motherland. Will you feel like a foreigner? There are times you feel like a foreigner. There are times you feel like a foreigner. Will others treat you like a foreigner? Likely they will. Likely they will. But even as they do, those who strongly believe and have also gone further and researched and found the ancestry to directly connect to Africa, like Samuel L. Jackson that I just showed you last week. Let them enjoy the journey. Let them partake, man. Let them connect with motherland. I think, do you let them do what they need to do? Because that's their own journey. That's their story. That's their story. So they've got to be able to do that without the suggestion that they are only indigenous and therefore do not belong. I believe there are black families, brothers and sisters, who are indigenous to the continent of America, who indeed arrived there even before, Columbus arrived in America and tried to claim America as a country that Europeans discovered. The same thing has happened in Africa. We still have Lake Victoria, but Lake Victoria has got a local name, Nam Norway, you know? So these were colonial antics. And unfortunately, they have persisted over time. So anyway, this is a school, Moi Educational Center, named after former President Moi. Yeah? So it's in a South Sea area of Nairobi. This area is increasingly now occupied by our Somali brothers and sisters who have moved into these neighborhoods. I think there's a Somali senator in the US. Yeah? Very vocal. Do your homework, you'll find out who she is. She's a Democrat. Do your homework, you'll find out. But yes, that is the extent of the involvement in politics and in the region. Somalia is one of those countries that unfortunately became ungovernable, has experienced a lot of internal strife, clan fights between communities, ever since the deposition of Siad Barre. Siad Barre was a dictator in Somalia. And Somalia has very few clans, but unfortunately that country has experienced so much violence. At a certain point, a vast majority of those who would travel there were constantly in fear of getting attacked, getting blown up. Yeah? In fact, at a very personal level, I lost a cousin in Somalia who was blown up in a van, and he worked for the United Nations. So Somalia was real. If you remember the story about Black Hawk Down, that was in Somalia. And that was the biggest blunder by the American military. That to date, they would rather work with the Kenyan authorities to create a buffer zone in terms of dealing with security issues, dealing with, threats within the soil of US, but also within installations, within US installations in the region, especially the US Embassy, I would imagine. You remember that the US Embassy was bombed in Nairobi in 1998. Right here, over 200 lives are lost. This right here. Those were twin bombings in Nairobi and in Tanzania, Dar es Salaam. So anyways, these are residential neighborhoods, man. Families live here. It's a 20 minutes drive to Nairobi city center. So these are typical middle class, middle income neighborhoods that you'll find in Nairobi. Yep. So I'm just giving you a view of it. And the traffic is building up. I see there's a new academy there, Nairobi West PCA Academy. That's brand new. That's brand new. So, Africans of diaspora, you belong, man, you belong. And I've demonstrated to you through the story of Kojo Lewis that indeed there are direct connections between Africans of diaspora and the continent of Africa that cannot be denied. So these are truths that we need to speak, that we need to share. Because if Kojo Lewis was stolen from Dahomey Republic, he was only 19 years old, made a life in America, then obviously that's only about 5 generations. And I even did, my previous video actually talks about that. That's only 5 generations. And you can directly trace through genealogy today, through technology, DNA. You can do the homework and trace that brother back to the kingdom of Dahomey, which is now called Benin. You know? It's Black History Month in the Americas, in the US. And so celebrating Black History Month cannot go without connecting the dots, relating Black families in the States to Africa. That connection is there, that bond is there. Steve Harvey says, how you never been home? How you never been home, man? And it's true.
It's like coming home
The yearning
to a place you've never been.
because there's a gap. And for a lot of families, the biggest challenge is that you are unable to trace, to pinpoint, like the Kojo family,
These are our people.
I feel proud that we had that bloodline.
from where exactly you came from. Who exactly is a direct connection to motherland Africa? Where does your history begin? Where does your story begin? That gap is huge. We've seen families travel back to Africa, touch the soil. It is something spiritual. It touches you at the depths. The void certainly will always be there. But to arrive to a continent where the vast majority of people
The Atlantic Ocean.
look like you,
I felt at peace. I felt at home.
it must be something that is so liberating. That yes, I belong. You belong. You belong here, man. And allow me very, very, very humbly to say that if our own ancestors, your ancestors, were brought brutally to America, were taken brutally to America, in chains, in the belly of ships where they were kept for almost 2 months, traveling the continent, traveling the seas to the new continent, to the new world of America. You can imagine, stuck in that belly, that pain, that chain, barely any food, no movement, coming up deck for maybe just a few hours of light in a week or 10 days. Then you can imagine that it was such a brutal thing. So the ability to travel now, when things are better, when times are better, is something that you can do to honor that ancestor who was brutally taken away. To allow them complete that story, reconnect with Africa, that even though they were taken away, you made the journey back to Africa. And their spirit, obviously, will rest easy. We've seen Black families return to Ghana. We've seen the slave castles in Ghana. We've seen all these places in Benin, Sierra Leone. We've had the stories. They have shared their triumph, their pain, but also just the excitement to be able to come back to the continent of Africa. It's a topic I'm passionate about. And as a man born and raised in the continent of Africa, you can't help but wonder or imagine that perhaps you are just lucky, that maybe your own ancestors were lucky, that this never got to them, this never happened to them. So it gives you such relief. But the awareness, the full awareness of that potential, that possibly happening, is not something that any one of us can take for granted. We can't take it lightly, man. So your pain is our pain, You are judged based on your skin, which is unfortunate. And so though my brother here says that education is the main thing, enlightenment. Yeah, this is Nairobi West. This is Nairobi West, new buildings coming up. New buildings coming up, but this other side is South Sea. So, though my brother is talking about education and enlightenment, in reality, when you look at what has happened in America, even to date, education and enlightenment means nothing, because the same individuals who hold the positions of power, well educated, well enlightened, have presided over years of discrimination. Remember, emancipation came in what? 1863. It took another 100 years by the trigger of Rosa Parks on that bus when she refused to get up, and I applaud her for that. She refused to get up. She was tired, she was weary, she sat like a human being should. And indeed, it was her right. And we saw how that triggered a lot of civil unrest in the US. We saw how young Americans, black, went onto those sit-ins in restaurants and made their point, made their case. So though you say it's education and enlightenment, the proof is right there. They say, that's in the pudding, man. You have not been given your freedom. You have not been respected as a human being, even by the most educated of your lot in America. Simply because you look like me. So how about that? But by all means, respectfully, the brother is entitled to his opinion. But that is something worth considering, that you indeed have been disrespected by the center power in these Western capitals. The most interesting thing that you will remember, even as we enjoy this walk in this neighborhood, is that Europe, and especially the kingdoms in Europe, were all about butchering their own. They fought their own people. Life was brutal. And the kingdoms, the kings and the queens ensured that they took the cream of life, the best of life. We all know about the French Revolution and how that happened.
The power of its own people.
And by the way, that connects directly to America, because the French king at the time decided to bankroll America's War of Independence, where they were able to fight off Britain's claims to territories in the US. And so by 1776, America finally declared independence. So that French connection is there. But that king engaged in excesses that eventually resulted in his deposition and, unfortunately, decapitation. His wife, Marie Antoinette, sadly met the same fate. Other monarchies have carried on. The British monarchy has carried on. The Queen passed on just the other day, who incidentally came to Kenya and as a princess and became a queen while in Kenya, a place called Nyeri, on top of a little hotel called Treetops, I believe, yeah, which is owned or was owned by Outspan, or now is owned by Outspan. So even the queen, beautiful, elegant, majestic as she was, her monarchy, in her time and before her time, presided over atrocities in Africa, in Asia, in the Caribbean, and made humans her subjects. The monarchy made humans their subjects. So those are the hard truths right there. Yeah, so this is Nairobi Muslim Academy. And of course, they've got the mosque right beside them. This is South Sea area. You will notice a lot of apartments coming up, like the Arova Hotel. Most of these now are neighborhoods by the Somali community who moved from Eastleigh in Nairobi to this area. And some of them, of course, probably have come from across. You know, Africa is Africa. So if you can't find your way, you will find your way. So they found their way here. And so these neighborhoods have really, really changed. From little old colonial apartments to massive blocks. You will see that. And there's even one being advertised here. 4-bedroom with a detached SQ, 16 million bob. So do your math. I think the dollar right now is probably about $1, 129 shillings. Let's just say 130. So do your mathematics there, man, and you'll figure it out. So that's the reality. That's the reality. So there'll be a little discomfort. You may feel like a foreigner. But stake your claim, man. Those who can connect, let them connect. Those who are interested on the continent, please be interested. Make your trips. Get your boots on the ground. Understand the neighborhoods you want to move into, the projects you would like to invest in, and do your thing. We can see what's happening in America now. Donald Trump was overwhelmingly, voted back into office. Big numbers. And traditionally, even black communities that were always voting for the Democrats decided that this time around, they're sick and tired of the Democrats failing to live up to their promises and would rather try and do something for Donald Trump. But you're already seeing there's a lot of tension in the US. The demonstrations, the riots here and there, pockets of discontent. And clearly, America, in this 4-year term, man, this country is going to explode. For real, this country is going to explode. And there's Blackzits. There are a lot of blacks who are moving on to Africa, traveling Europe and going to places, Caribbean, Asia, to just run away from it. You know? So that's the reality there. My brothers there are at work. Men at work, men at work. That's garbage collection, man. Mkwaje lakini? Kofiti? Poa moraljo? Poa sana. He says, buy him some tea. Buy him some tea. Young men at work. So that's garbage collection. Yeah, so listen, man. That's the story of Africa for you. Black History Month, that's your connection with Africa. You've got to see the linkages. You know, those who choose to not connect with Africa, I think they're very much within their rights. So do your thing, man. Those who want to connect, again, do your thing. Connect with Motherland Africa. You know, not everybody will welcome you, but certainly for us, Afrocentric, we are believers in that connection. We believe you deserve to be on the continent of Africa, and you can stake your claim. The Clotilda survivors, it is so direct, we can see it. And that those who can use the genetics, genealogy, to trace their roots, by all means, do. So honor the ancestors, men. Honor your ancestors. And embrace the continent, if you can. You know? Much love and thanks to you guys, man. I hope you have enjoyed the walk. I hope I have made sense to you. And I hope you can see the relationship between Africa and black diaspora. It's undeniable. It's undeniable. What's up, my brother? You know, so yeah. That's what's up. This is Afrocentric, man, taking you on a walk through Nairobi. Nairobi is changing. This neighborhood it's blown up, man. Wow. That's blown up. It's beautiful right there. But I think it can also be argued that certain parts of the city have now been reduced to concrete jungles. Africa is increasingly, but specifically Nairobi. At this point, even saying Africa is a challenge for others. When you say Africa, somebody thinks Africa is only about Africans, the people. But linguistics will tell you it's a metonym. Africa is not only the people. Africa is the continent. Africa is the political systems. Africa is the culture. Africa is the experience. So I believe that the audience here, you are discerning enough to tell the difference. Unfortunately, some people look at the title of a video, they make quick judgment, don't even bother to watch, and boom, they're out in the comments. There's a brother here who said he was gonna report the last content I did just because of the title. Those who spoke directly about it. Those who spoke directly about it, about the pain on coming to the continent of Africa. And a lot of those of you who viewed saw the truth in it, saw the sense in it. The question is, how can we bridge that gap? How can we help each other? How can we relate better? There's a Zulu saying that hands wash each other. Zulu is a tribe in South Africa. So it basically means we should take the opportunity to work with each other, walk with each other. That has to be the message to you guys, man. Africa and blacks, wherever you sit today, the potential is in investing, engaging, and building wealth for our brothers and sisters. That is what we have to do as Africans. Are we doing that? So that we are not simply a consumer society and brothers who are only bickering, who are only bickering about semantics of life, you know. So I'm held up here. There's a vehicle that is getting material in. So, oops. Like I said, Nairobi is under construction. Nairobi is under construction. So you see a lot of trucks coming into the neighborhoods, a lot of buildings coming up. It's constantly under construction. Yeah. This is South Sea, Nairobi. This is Afrocentric in South Sea, Nairobi. Many thanks for watching. Like I said again, I hope I have made sense. I hope it can help you connect, because our whole idea is to tease out the issues, speak to the problems, but also celebrate our Africanness, celebrate our culture, because culture connects people. There's a famous book called Things Fall Apart by a gentleman who has since rested, a brother that I really respected, Chinua Achebe, who talks about things falling apart because the center fails to hold. So essentially what the book talks about, it talks about the things that hold communities together, the things that hold Africa together, you know? The things that hold Africa together. So can it only be education and enlightenment that hold people together? We are a people who are steeped in tradition, in culture. We are rich like that. And that cannot be taken away. Even the blacks who exist in the US, for example, go to the southern states. Look at their cuisine. Look at their cuisine. Their cuisine connects very much with what you find in West Africa. The okras in their food. So that tells you that there is remnants of what was African. It is certainly there. It is certainly there. Good friends, this is Afrocentric, man. Many thanks for watching. And if this resonates with you, you know, just do the honor. Subscribe, like, and share. And a big up, it's been an amazing week. So many subscribers have come on, a good 3,000, and the number is growing. And I can bet that even after this story, we are definitely going to be leaping to 20,000 and onwards to 50,000. Much respect, much love. and we'll see you in the next video. Please check out the next video. This is definitely Afrocentric, and now I am definitely out. Peace and love. Bye-bye.